What's up, YouTube? This is Carrie from Side Tripping with Carrie. I know it's been a minute, but I am here in Cathedral City, California, which is right next to Palm Springs. And we're visiting the final resting place of Beverly Wills, who was the daughter of a comedian from, most famous in like the 40s and 50s, Joan Davis. And Beverly was an actress in her own right, never quite made it to the levels that her mother did, despite her mother's best efforts. And tragically, Beverly, her two sons, Larry and Guy, 7 and 4, as well as her grandmother, Nina Davis, all died in a horrific house fire in Palm Springs in 1963. 2 years after Joan Davis died, young at 53. This was covered. Scott Michaels from Dearly Departed Tours did an excellent video on the house where this went down in Palm Springs, and you could maybe consider this an unauthorized sequel or a supplement, if you will, to Scott's video. But I wanted to show you guys the final resting places of Beverly and her grandmother. And here we are at the final resting place of Beverly Wills. The inscription reads, "My beloved wife, Beverly Wills Colbert, 1933 to 1963. After darkness, eternal light." And again, Beverly was the daughter of Joan Davis. Joan Davis was a contemporary, if you will, of Lucille Ball. Joan was about 4 years older, and she's, like I said earlier, she passed away due to a heart attack at the young age of 53, 2 years before Beverly, her grandmother, and her two boys unfortunately lost their lives in the house fire in 1963. So Joan, again, was famous in, you know, she kind of made a name for herself. I guess originally she married a guy by the name of Cy Wills, Beverly's father, and Joan and Cy were in vaudeville together. He was kind of like the straight man, and Joan was a very physical comedian in that, you know, she did a lot of pratfalls and things of that nature. She's probably most well known, gosh, even, I don't know if it's well known by today's standards or by today's audience, for this sitcom that ran from 1952 to 1955 called I Married Joan. And Joan Davis was in it, and she was married in the show to Jim Backus, better known as Mr. Howell from Gilligan's Island. And this show ran, it only ran for 3 years. You know, people say it pales in comparison to I Love Lucy, but I'm gonna make an admission to you guys right now, probably very unpopular, but I never liked I Love Lucy. I just didn't. I did. Now this is crazy because I did like the Lucy Show and Here's Lucy that Lucy did like in the late 60s and early 70s. But for whatever reason, I just never liked I Love Lucy. I just didn't. Now I recently, or fairly recently, got turned on to Joan Davis and I Married Joan through kind of antenna TV. I was trying to cut the cord and was seeing what was out there available on you know, over-the-air television, and they had old reruns of Joan Davis. So that's kind of how I originally came to discover all these things about Beverly and Joan Davis in general. And again, Joan died in 1961 of a heart attack, and she's buried in Culver City at Holy Cross Cemetery. And again, on that Scott Michaels video, he actually goes to the mausoleum, and you can see it there, and I've provided a link. In any event, Joan was something of a stage mother. You know, she came from kind of humble beginnings in St. Paul, Minnesota. Her dad worked for the railroad, and Joan made it. And so she really was thinking that her daughter could make it as well, as an actress, as a comedian. And Joan did everything in her power to get kind of Beverly over that line. And to her credit, you know, Beverly did. She did some acting both as a child and as a young woman. Uh, Unfortunately, Beverly kind of had a chaotic personal life in that she was married 3 times before she was 30. Her second marriage to Alan Grossman produced 2 sons, Guy and Larry, who unfortunately died in the fire that claimed Beverly and their grandmother. And uh, the, you know, her last marriage was to a fellow by the last name was Colbert. And from a legal perspective, the thing that kind of interests me, one of the things that interests me about Beverly's situation actually there were 2 things. Number one, when Joan passed away, she passed away intestate, which means she died without a will. At least that's how everyone, I guess, initially thought. And so she was divorced, so that cuts out Cy, and she only had 1 child, Beverly. So all of Joan's estate went to Beverly. Now, this is interesting in that Joan was a lot like Lucille Ball in that she was very smart about the business, entertainment wise. And she was one of the first people to syndicate her TV show because she owned I Married Joan. And so you got to think about the kind of the early days of television in the 50s. And she was one of the first syndicated shows, one of the first people out there. And, you know, these television stations were buying the show. So it made her a pretty wealthy woman. And so she passes away intestate. Everything goes to Beverly. Well, lo and behold, Cy pulled out a holographic will, which essentially, a holographic will is basically a will, handwritten, scribbled in anything really, that is not witnessed. Okay, one of the things, I learned this in law school, one of the best ways to have a valid will is to make sure that, you know, it's written on sound mind, sound body, without any kind of undue duress or influence, and that's signed in the person's hand, and also that's witnessed by someone, you know, that somebody can attest to and say, yes, on such and such a day, at such and such a time, at such and such a place, I witnessed the signing of this will. So if anything comes up, the will's contested, somebody can pull a witness to come in and testify to the will's authenticity. So Cy produces this holographic will. That's a will without a witness that purported to be Joan's. And there was a big, huge fight about it. And ultimately, they settled, but it was settled more in the favor of Beverly than it was Cy. So, the next thing that became very curious to me from a legal perspective is this fellow Colbert. I believe his name was Max. He was a motorcycle salesman here in Palm Springs, and I'm not sure if Beverly had a will. So if she died intestate, 100% of her estate, which again is largely probably comprised of Joan Davis's estate, went to Mr. Colbert. Because think about it, Beverly, well, she was married, so she died without a will. So if she dies without a will, the estate goes to the husband, who, if he survives, which he did. So there it goes. So in any event, here is Beverly's final resting place. And interred next to Beverly is her grandmother, Nina Mae Davis. And as you can see, man, oh man, the sun has really beaten up this marker. If I can read it, I believe it says Grandma Nina Mae Davis, loved by all. But I did want to show you guys the final resting places of these two women, and rest in peace to Beverly and to Nina Davis, Miss Davis and Miss Beverly Wills Colbert. All right, so that's going to do it for this edition, folks. Again, I'm sorry about the kind of infrequency, if you will, of the videos, but I'll tell you this, man, Phoenix is it's just, unless I find an interesting grave for you guys in an air-conditioned mausoleum, it's going to be tough getting videos done between now and October. It's just super hot. But to be honest with you, Palm Springs ain't a whole lot better, but it is a little bit cooler today. So got one other video coming up here pretty quick. So I'm gonna be headed back to Phoenix with Mrs. Side Tripping with Carrie tomorrow. So stay tuned for another video real soon. If you like today's video, please indicate by liking it and leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you've seen I Married Joan. And Beverly, as a matter of fact, was appeared on a bunch of episodes in the second season of I Married Joan. So see if you can spot her there. And yeah, leave some comments. Tell me why you like I Love Lucy. And you know, we'll see you on the next one. Please consider subscribing to the channel as well. And again, we'll see you soon. Bye.